I found a remote job that's too good to be true. I was 3 months behind on rent when the job offer appeared. Not in my inbox, not on LinkedIn, but tucked away on a small, half-broken forum I hadn't visited in years. I don't even remember why I was there. Insomnia, maybe, clicking through old bookmarks like a moth circling a dead bulb. The posting was barely a paragraph long. Remote work, flexible hours, data entry, $40 per hour, paid daily, must be detail-oriented. No company name, no logo, just a link. Normally, I would have laughed, scrolled past, and told myself it was some phishing scam. But it was 2 a.m. My checking account balance was in the double digits, and the fridge contained nothing but a half-empty jar of pickles. So I clicked. The site it led to was plain. A cream background, black text, nothing flashy. It asked for my name, bank details for direct daily deposit, and a short competency test. Basically, retyping numbers from one box into another. I hesitated at the bank details, but by then, desperation had drowned out doubt. I filled it in and hit submit. The screen went blank for a moment, then returned with 3 words in bold. You are hired. No contract, no welcome email. Just that. A countdown timer appeared on the screen. 30 minutes ticking away. A small note beneath. Shift begins shortly. Please be ready. I almost closed the laptop right there, muttering at myself for being so stupid. But half an hour later, the screen blinked and a new window opened with a list of numbers and a single instruction. Transfer column A into column B. Accuracy required. It was mindless. 1423 became 1423. 92817 became 92817. Copy, type, and submit. After 10 minutes, the system congratulated me with a cheerful chime, and another task appeared. That first task lasted 2 hours. Nothing complicated, just numbers. When it ended, the screen displayed a message. Payment processed. I checked my banking app with trembling fingers. $82. Instantly deposited. I sat there, staring at it, mouth open, trying to process how money had just appeared in my account for 2 hours of busy work. No checks, no invoicing, no waiting period. Just immediate cash. That night I went to bed with my stomach full for the first time in weeks. The next day I logged in again. The same cream-colored site opened automatically, as though it had installed itself as my new home page. Another shift timer, another 2 hours of numbers. By the time I was done, $80 more sat in my account. By the end of the week, I'd earned over $500. My rent, my utilities, even groceries, all suddenly manageable. The simplicity of it was addictive. No bosses, no coworkers, no endless Zoom calls. Just me, my laptop, and tasks so dull they barely required thought. I told no one, not my landlord, not my family. Some paranoid part of me whispered that if I breathed too loudly about it, the job would vanish. Like a fragile dream that only existed as long as I didn't question it. The only strange thing, at first, was the instructions. They weren't written like a person had typed them. No casual phrasing, no human rhythm. Instead, every task arrived like a command carved out of stone. Enter exactly as shown. No deviation. Do not alter. Do not improvise. Remain at screen until completion. It was clinical. Absolute. But I shrugged it off. I'd done freelance gigs before for overseas clients whose English sounded robotic. This was no different, I told myself. Then came the first error. Halfway through a shift, I copied a 7-digit string wrong. Instead of 8142795, I typed 8142759. The system flagged it instantly. The screen flashed red, a blaring sound filling the room. My heart leapt as the words scrolled across the screen. Mistake detected. Refrain from repetition. The noise cut off. The task reset. I sat, sweating, staring at the correction like I just narrowly avoided a car crash. It was only a typo, but the system, its reaction, felt hostile. I triple-checked every number after that. My fingers trembled at the keys, afraid another error would trigger something worse. By the end of the second week, I'd earned nearly $1,500. The money made it easier to ignore the oddities. I stocked my fridge, caught up on rent, even allowed myself a bottle of cheap whiskey. Yet a part of me noticed the subtle changes. The tasks shifted slightly. Instead of numbers, I was given short strings of text. Random words at first. Silver, window, bricks. But then came stranger ones. Containment, isolation, hollowing. I typed them out like the rest, though the words lingered in my head long after the shift ended. Other tasks involved matching images. At first it was basic clip art. Apple, car, dog. But later, I was also asked to click on all of the photos of abandoned buildings. Then faces looking away. Then doors without handles. Each instruction carried the same sharp finality. No deviation. On the 14th day, the site welcomed me with a new message. You are advancing. For the first time, I felt a flutter of unease. Advancing to what? That night, I lay awake longer than usual. Not from excitement, but from something heavier, pressing in. The glow of the laptop still leaked faintly from the desk across the room, as though waiting for me. I rolled over, shut my eyes, and tried not to think about the words that had appeared on screen earlier. You are advancing. Advancing where? And why did it feel like I'd stepped onto a path I couldn't leave? The first new task came with no warning. I logged in expecting the usual strings of numbers, text prompts, maybe another batch of strange image selections. Instead, the screen simply said, Play file. Transcribe. A button blinked below. Audio clip 1. I plugged in my headphones, leaned back, and pressed play. At first, it was nothing but static, the hiss of a detuned radio. And then came a voice, faint and warped, like someone speaking through a brick wall.
4, 7, 0, 5.
Numbers, just like before, only read aloud instead of written. I typed them in carefully. The clip ended with a low crackle, like breathing across the mic, before cutting out. No fanfare, no warning, just another task waiting. Audio clip 2. The first few files were harmless, if unsettling. Voices that sounded stretched, words drawn out too long. Male, female, sometimes overlapping. Occasionally, I'd catch a cough or shuffling sound in the background, as if someone had forgotten they were being recorded. But then came clip 7. The voice was panicked, shaky, not the monotone numbers from before. A real voice.
Please, someone.
The audio warped, cutting the sentence in half, then resumed with a blood-curdling scream so loud I yanked my headphones off. The system didn't care. The text prompt still blinked. Transcribe. My hands shook as I typed what I'd heard.
Please, someone.
And then a scream. The system accepted it without comment. No explanation. I sat back, pulse racing, and told myself it was just a test. Maybe some kind of desensitization program. Creepy, but not dangerous. Except the money kept coming. Another $160 that night. Enough to quiet the unease. By the end of the week, the clips grew stranger. Sometimes, all I could hear were distorted sounds that resembled language, but never resolved into words. Other times, there were long silences filled with faint thuds or scratching noises. Clip 19 was the worst so far. It began like the others. Static, faint murmuring, then clear as day. A woman's voice, whispering right against the mic.
Don't help them.
The line repeated, warped, backwards, then cut to silence. My chest tightened. When I finished transcribing, the system didn't display the usual green check mark. Instead, it lingered for several seconds before flashing a new phrase across the screen. Accuracy improving. Continue. It felt less like encouragement and more like surveillance. I started noticing changes outside the laptop too. My dreams became strange, muffled things like my brain was still transcribing in my sleep. I'd wake up muttering numbers, repeating nonsense syllables into the dark. Once, I swear, I woke to find my laptop already open. The site waiting with the shift timer running down, even though I hadn't logged in. Other nights, I swore I could hear faint static, even after the headphones were off. Then came the first interactive task. Instead of an audio clip, the site displayed a pixelated game window, old school, like something from the 90s. A simple landscape, green grass, a blue sky, a little sprite controlled with the arrow keys. Text scrolled across the top. Collect. Bury. At first, I didn't understand. Then I saw them. Small, black shapes on the ground, like bundles of pixels. The sprite shuffled over, and with one press of the spacebar, I picked up the bundle. Another press near a patch of dirt. Buried it. That was it. Move, collect, bury. The longer I played, the more the bundles looked less like blobs and more like bodies. Crude, blocky outlines of limbs, faces without features. I buried them anyway. The game congratulated me with a cheerful ding at the end. Another $200 appeared in my bank. I started rationing my work after that. 1 shift a day. No more late-night marathons. But even then, the system adapted. Tasks bled together. I'd start with data entry, move to an audio file, then find myself back in the pixel game without transition. The boundaries between jobs blurred, as though the system was testing how quickly I could shift from one kind of task to another. I told myself it was fine. Just a strange company with strange training methods. If the money was real, who cared? But then came clip 33. The voice was different, clearer, closer. At first, I thought it was just another string of numbers. Then the voice shifted, sharper, directed. You, at the desk. We see you. The words froze me. I tore the headphones off, heart hammering, but the audio kept playing faintly through the laptop speakers. The whispering voice filling my apartment. Don't stop typing. The screen blinked red until I put the headphones back on. Hands trembling, I typed the words exactly as I heard them. When the clip ended, the system rewarded me as always. A payment. A green check mark. But I sat there long after, unable to shake the feeling that I hadn't just transcribed the words. I'd answered them. That night, as I lay in bed, the glow of the laptop screen lit the corner of my room. I hadn't touched it. Hadn't logged back in. Yet the shift timer had started again, counting down on its own. And over the faint hiss of the speakers, I swore I heard breathing. The site changed again without announcement. I logged in for my standard shift and the green background was gone. In its place, a black window edged with green text, as if the whole thing had been demoted to a terminal. A single line blinked. Load. Task set 3. Then, the first instruction. Correct timing markers. All timestamps to null. Maintain. The video loaded in a strip of thumbnails. Gray frames. Low. Canted angle. Security footage. I clicked the first tile. A hallway I didn't recognize. The camera lens had dust inside the housing, so the edges looked like snow. At the bottom right, a timestamp flickered. 021143, 021144. My job was to wipe the numbers and keep the order intact. The tool was simple. Drag a mask across the digits, hit apply, move to the next. I worked through 20 frames and submitted. A chime. Another reel loaded. Halfway through the 5th, the angle punched me in the gut. The door at the end of the hall, the scuffed baseboard, the doormat with the faded lighthouse. My building. I leaned closer. At 033216, Mrs. Hahn from 2A shuffled past in her slippers, holding the plastic bin she used for laundry quarters. I scrubbed back to make sure I hadn't imagined it. There she was again, wobbling in the same worn cardigan she always wore. The timestamp kept advancing. This wasn't an archive. It was now. The cursor hovered over the digits. My brain waited for a note, a joke, an explanation. The tool waited for input. I covered the numbers and hit apply. A green checkmark approved the edit. Another reel slid into place. You are accurate. Continue. The money in my account ticked higher before I'd even finished the set. It felt like someone was paying me to pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. I kept going. Tasks bled into each other again, as if the site had decided to test how far it could push my focus before it snapped. Wipe timestamps, flag anomalies, return to audio, back to the game. The pixel window updated. The grass looked the same, flat, green. The grid was as neat as notebook paper. But the sprite now had an inventory panel. When the shovel sank, a new sound played. Not a chime, a dull padded knock, like a gloved hand against a door. The bundles had better details now. The edges rounded, a hint of shoes, a suggestion of hair. I moved soil with the arrows. The mound rose. The noise looped. The game announced, completed burial. 4 out of 4. It kept score. I told myself a real company wouldn't do this. Then I told myself it wasn't a real company, which should have made it worse, but somehow made it easier to keep going. The bank deposits arrived twice that day. The descriptor strings made no sense. Small vendors from nowhere places. Thresh, pay. Lake, OPS. CSV. I watched my balance climb and imagined the bills notices in my inbox becoming polite again. The relief was a sedative. At midnight, a new window snapped open with no request from me. Live watch. Maintain visual. Do not turn away. The feed came up in a tight square. Grainy, low light, set at a low angle. It took me too long to realize it was my living room. The couch in profile, the ugly lamp I'd meant to throw out months ago, the glass on the coffee table, my water, half drunk, catching a glint from the street. I reached up without thinking and put a finger over the laptop camera. The screen stuttered. Obstruction detected. Do not obstruct. Censor. I pulled my hand away. The little green camera light clicked on and stayed on. The feed did not show me at the desk. It showed the room empty. The instruction text blinked. Polite. Maintain visual. Do not turn away. I held myself still as if the site could measure the angle of my head. 30 seconds into that performance, a new panel slid up. A chat window. Supervisor. Hello. Congratulations on advancement. Who are you? You are doing well. Why is there a camera in my apartment? Stay in your chair. Do not answer the door. My neck prickled. I hadn't heard a knock. I hadn't even stood. My apartment was 4 floors up. The stairs always gave warnings. Breath, voices, the shuffle of mail. Tonight, nothing. I typed, "There's no one at the door." No response. The chat box pulsed, then minimized itself, as if I'd asked an irrelevant question. The feed changed from my living room to a view on the street below my window, the crosswalk, the leaning sign, the bus stop with the torn ad. A bus slid into frame, brakes whispering. On its side, a ripple of static transformed the ad into an impossible geometry for half a second. No one on the sidewalk looked up. No one ever looks up. The prompt overlapped the video. Identify error frames. I clicked through the seconds where reality buckled like a heat mirage and flagged them as instructed. The site accepted my judgment with a soft tone that made me hate myself. The audio returned like a voice clearing its throat. Play file. Transcribe. At first, only the gentle pulse of Maine's hum. Then someone breathed. Too close to the mic, a metallic squeak. Chair leg on tile or a hinge. A whisper. Soft. Almost buried under the noise.
Don't help them.
The same phrase I'd heard days ago, only clearer. Like the site was replaying it after cleaning it up on its own machine. Another play button appeared immediately below. Play file. Transcribe. This one was empty until the last second, when a single word slid through like a fish breaching the surface.
Look.
The next clip started itself. The word came up again. Different voice.
Look.
The screen split in two to make the room side by side for the pixel game. My sprite stood over a narrow pit. The shovel icon blinked. A message at the top. Continue burying. Keep eyes. Front. My hands obeyed. The shovel moved. Soil shifted. In the audio pane, 100 small voices whispered in perfect synchronization. Look. The two panes fought for attention like children tussling over a toy. I buried a shape I refused to interpret, while a feed of my own street paused on a frame where the reflection in the bus stop suggested someone standing in my window who wasn't me. Look. The camera light stayed on. I kept working. The next day started before I opened my eyes. The laptop was already lit. The shift timer had gone through 0 on its own, and now sat at a flat line. I sat up. My throat was dry. The chat window was open again. Hello. We are pleased. I didn't log in. Yes. You can't do that. Continue. A field of images loaded. Faces with eyes banded out. Rooms with clocks missing their hands. Doors that opened to black. Select all frames with person looking at camera. That should have been easy. Halfway through, a set of frames appeared from inside my building stairwell. The lens was low. Near the second step, my upstairs neighbor descended carrying groceries. She never looked at the camera. I didn't select. The site paused as if to consider, then overlaid the same frames in sequence again. Only this time, in the middle of the stairwell, she lifted her head and stared down the lens. The light in the stairwell popped once. Her pupils flashed. No blink. Correct. I clicked them. Nauseated. By evening, the room felt unventilated. Though I'd opened the window to the cold, I forced myself to stand, to stretch, to step away. The screen didn't like that. Remain at screen. The audio hissed. The game chimed without sweetness. The live feed of my room picked up a hair-thin thread of movement. Nothing definite, just enough to trigger the brainstem. I dragged the chair closer to myself. My legs had pins and needles. My fingers ached from the hammering precision of someone who knows mistakes are noticed. I typed anyway. That's when the first knock came. It didn't sound like a knock. It sounded like someone testing the weight of the world on my door. A long, slow press that made the wood flex in its frame. The chat window popped without animation. Supervisor. Do not answer. Do not turn away. The feed switched to the hallway outside my apartment. Same dust in the lens. The numbers in the corner ran live. My door filled the frame like a portrait. No one else. No shoes on the mat. No shadow under the gap. Another pressure against the wood. My doorbell, dead for months, found a voice and rang once, politely. I typed, "How are you inside my building?" The chat waited. Then, "Do not turn away." The site's window resized itself, larger, shoving everything else into the margins. The camera light got brighter, or my eyes convinced me it did. The knock came again, harder this time, unmistakably human in its intent. I bent toward the peephole instinctively and stopped with my forehead an inch from the door. The screen hissed, "Maintain visual." The hallway feed flickered. For 2 frames, just 2, the fisheye lens bloomed white and reset, and the dust inside the housing arranged itself into something like a face. The rational part of my brain told me it was a coincidence. The rest of me believed the error wanted to be seen. Another knock, loud enough to stir the air. I set my palms on the desk. They left damp prints. The game window chimed that a task had completed itself without me. The audio pane clicked into a new file, and for the first time, I heard my own breathing come back at me from inside the clip. The chat pinged again. Supervisor. Finalization. Near. You are ready. A new instruction overlaid everything. Text so large, it displaced the feed. Hold position. Do not blink. I didn't realize I'd been holding my eyes open until the sting began. The knock stopped. The hallway stayed empty. The site waited. The cursor blinked in the chat window with a pulse that matched my pulse and made me hate the symmetry. The screen dimmed a fraction, like a warning. The laptop's fan spun up. My apartment felt smaller than it had the day I moved in. Like the walls had stepped closer while I worked. The knock came one last time. No restraint this round. A full-bore slam that rattled the frame and shook dust out of the ceiling fixture. The site stabilized the feed so the door didn't jump in the image. My nerves jumped instead. I kept my eyes on the screen because I had been told to, and because disobeying felt like stepping off a roof. The power cut with a soft click. The apartment fell into a sudden, full silence that had weight. The laptop went black. I didn't move. I didn't breathe right away. The fan spun again. Somewhere, 4 floors below, a bus sighed to a stop. The screen stayed dark for 3 measured heartbeats, then woke on its own to a field of crawling static. Pixels drifted like snow. The camera light burned green. The static gathered itself into a shape that suggested shoulders, then a head, and an opened mouth. I didn't make a sound yet. That came after. The speakers whispered in a voice built from torn tape and bad wire. "We've found you. The cursor blinked, just a tiny green line pulsing in the dark, but it felt like the only heartbeat left in the room. My monitor had gone black after the last assignment, that grotesque pixel game where I'd been told to bury bodies beneath shifting mounds of dirt. No windscreen, no reward, just silence. And slowly, the glow came back. A new window opened at first. I thought it was a video chat, the static blurred kind you'd see on old security cameras. But the frame didn't move. It was a figure. Tall, grainy, featureless. A shape pressed into the fuzz of the analog feed, like it had been waiting on the other side of the screen all this time. The speakers crackled. A hiss, then words, low and warped, spilling across the static.
"We've found you."
My stomach twisted. I tore my headset off, but the voice wasn't just in the headphones. It was in the walls, rattling through the drywall and wires, humming itself inside the air. The monitor brightened until it washed the room in sickly light. I could see myself reflected faintly, pale and shaking. Then came the knock. No, not a knock, a slam. Heavy, like someone throwing their whole weight against the front door. The sound rattled the picture frames in the halls. I froze, still staring at the screen where the figure hadn't moved, its static head cocked slightly, as though listening. Another bang, louder. My chair scraped against the floor as I stumbled back. My mind raced. Neighbors? A break-in? No one could know. I hadn't told a soul about this job. The lights flickered. The computer shut itself off with a sharp click, plunging the room into a suffocating darkness. I backed away, hand groping blindly for my phone, but the only thing I could hear was the slow creak of the front door hinges straining. Then silence. My breath caught. The next slam rattled through my chest. I screamed before I even knew I was making a sound. Raw, tearing panic as the door burst wide open. The last thing I saw, in the faint glow of the dead monitor, was movement. A shadow, pulling itself inside. And then, black.